Hey, what's up, guys? It's Jordan with Laundromat Resource, and I wanted to just hold the phone for a second and do this impromptu video. And it was spurred on by a couple of different consulting calls that I did this week. A couple of my consulting clients brought me the same deal, and this deal was very disturbing to me, and it just made me think, because it seems intriguing on the surface, but there's a lot of things about this particular deal that I think are illustrative of some of the problems that you can run into when looking at a laundromat. So I wanted to go through, not just to show you the problems of this specific laundromat, but to show you what I'm looking for when I get information about a laundromat, and how I think about the information that I'm getting. I'm going to walk you through this actual deal. So I'm going to share my screen here with you. And so you should be able to see this deal. Okay, here's the deal. I took out all the specific information about the actual business and who's listing it, although, man, they should be ashamed of themselves. But here we go. I want to walk you through this deal. Okay, so we got a coin laundry business for sale here. And here's some of the things that I'm looking for and looking at when I first get this kind of information. You'll get this kind of information for most deals, especially if a broker's listing them. You'll get something similar to this that's going to have some general information that you're expected to make your offer based off of. Okay, so let's take a look at what we want to look at first. Okay, so first we want to make sure we know what we're looking at here. So it's a business, and that's what's under here. Okay, so we're looking first of all at the sales number. How much money is coming in, the income of the laundromat. So we see here that the income of this laundromat is $27,000 a month. Okay, pretty good. That's a pretty good income. And I'm feeling good about that at this point in time. Now, obviously, it's a nice round number, so it's an average, it's a general number. We're going to have to do some work during due diligence to make sure we have a tighter understanding of what this number actually is. But 27,000, that's a pretty high volume store, and something I can work with, right? Directly underneath that is where the first red flag starts popping up for me. Okay, so we're looking at $27,000 a month, and you start picturing what you could do with that kind of money, right? And this is the gross money, not the net. Okay, this is total income. But then we see here in parentheses, it says average of the last 5 months. Now, that just prompts the question to me, why is it the average of the last 5 months? What was it like before that 5 months, and why is that not being factored into this thing? And my immediate assumption is that somewhere around 5 months ago, they decided they were going to sell the business. And so they started doing things to make it more attractive. And as these sort of yellow and red flags start to pile up, it makes me start to assume that the things they were doing to pad this number, this gross income number, maybe I don't want to pass any judgment, but that's my first thought, man. Maybe they're doing some things that they're running extra washes, or they're adding money, or something like that in the last 5 months. So my first question is going to be, what happened before this 5 months? Why is that not being factored in there? And I can pretty much guarantee you that before this 5 months, the income was lower than that, and that's why it's not being factored in. Okay, so now typically I want to see numbers for the last 2 years, and maybe they'll provide that after we got an offer accepted. I don't know. I did not have any interaction with the broker, the owner of this laundromat at all. I'm just drawing conclusions based off of what I'm looking at on the sheet. Okay, so that's a red flag for me, or at least a yellow flag. Why are they only reporting the last 5 months? Probably because it makes the business look better, and therefore cost more. So red flag, yellow flag here, prompts some questions. And really all of these things, what we're looking for in these sheets is different things that stand out that prompt questions. We want to be asking questions. So you're going to be writing down, why is it the last 5 months? What was the income like before that last 5 months? Why is that not included in the value? Those are the kinds of questions we want to be asking about this. Okay. So now let's move on. We've already got this like, that's a little weird, but okay, let's keep moving on. We might be able to figure out a way past that potentially. Okay, so look, we got a building here. It's almost 5,000 square feet. That's awesome, right? $27,000, awesome. 5,000 square feet. That's awesome. That's a really good size laundromat. You could do high volume, and it looks like, according to their numbers at least, they're doing a pretty decent volume of business there in that 5,000 square foot building. So that's great. BH, I'm assuming, is business hours. I don't know, but that's what I'm assuming. And if that's the case, I'm looking, hey, there might be a little bit of an opportunity here to open up an hour or two earlier to pick up a little more business, pre-work business or whatever. Potentially, just something to keep in mind, jot down that note, right? Now, red flag number 2 is the lease is 5 years. Now, I always tell my consulting clients, I'll tell you, really what you're looking for is a minimum of 10 years in almost every situation. 10 years is like the bare minimum that you're looking for. And even more than that, even better, 15, 20, 25 even is good for a laundromat because it's hard to move a laundromat, right? Expensive and probably impractical in most situations. So if your lease runs out and your landlord decides not to re-up you or decides to triple your rent, you could be in a world of hurt. So a long-term lease gives you stability and security actually in the business, right? So 5 years is a red flag right off the bat. So now that doesn't necessarily mean it's a deal killer, but if I was going to make an offer, which I wouldn't make an offer on this one, you'll see why in a little bit, but if I was going to make an offer on this, it would be contingent on getting more time on the lease, either negotiating a new lease, maybe adding options to renew the lease, maybe 2 or 3 5-year options. So at the end of that 5-year lease, I have the option to renew another 5 years, something like that, because 5 years is just not enough time. If you only have 5 years on lease, you have to operate under the assumption that your business is going to be done and closed down after 5 years. It may not be. You may get a new lease or a renewal on the lease or something like that. But if you only have 5 years, you have to operate under the assumption that you've only got that 5 years, and then you'll be out of business in that location. So that's going to dramatically decrease the value of that laundromat because, you only got 5 years. So you got 5 years to, recoup all your initial investment, make the kind of return on your investment that's makes it worth your while to invest in this. And then also, you got to account for, you don't have a business to sell at the end of this thing. You may have some equipment to sell, but not a business. So you lose out on that equity side of things too. Okay. So that's the lease. That's a red/yellow flag there. But we're going to keep plugging on. Okay. So we got average monthly sales here. So we have inside sales, 27,000, which is right here. And then rental income, I'm assuming it doesn't clarify. And again, I'm just making assumptions based off of my experience and kind of what I'm deducing here. But I'm assuming, maybe they're subletting some space, or they have a taco cart in the parking lot that pays them $800 a month, or, something like that. So I'm assuming that, but that, when there's ambiguity like this, that just, write it down, that question, what is this rental income? And you got to decide, is it going to be there in the future too? When you take over, is that rental income going to be there? If not, or if it's unknown or not likely, then you need to count on that income not being there. So you want to use that 27,000 number, not the 28.8 of total gross profit over here. Okay. So we don't know the answer to that right now, but that's okay. We can kind of keep plugging along, but we're writing down this question, right? These are questions we want to go back to the owner or the broker with to get clarity. The name of the game here is clarity. Okay. Now, when we get to the operating expenses, this is where the major red flags are. I mean, there's already some red flags up here with the 5-month income and the 5-year lease. But right here, we have the rent and the triple net expenses. Triple net is the tenants pay the the expenses for the property for the landlord. So that's the three nets of triple net are the property taxes, the property insurance, and the property maintenance. Okay. And the tenants split that. That's a fairly common thing. It's not everywhere, but it's fairly common. The fact that there's triple net is not necessarily the problem. The fact that the rent plus triple net is $12,250 is a huge red flag. Okay. Now the number, how I like to look at rent is as a percentage of the gross income. Okay. So we got 27,000 here and we've got $12,250 here. And I should have done this math ahead of time, but somewhere around 40% maybe of the total gross income. Now, the number we're shooting for, the ratio we're shooting for a rent to gross income ratio is around 25%. Now, that's not always possible everywhere, but that's like the goal. Obviously, less than that, even better. That 25% mark is the goal. And, you know, once you're creeping up around 33, 35+%, it gets incrementally more and more difficult to have a viable business that just works. And if you're at 40%, I mean, you're really putting yourself in a tough situation, you know, to be able to make money in that business if 40% of your gross income is going to rent. Okay, so huge red flag right there. Huge red flag. One thing that I would deduce, and I don't know that this is the case, but I would probably be willing to bet a little sum of money that this is the case. I would guess that because this rent is so high and because the lease is 5 years and because they're only giving you 5 months of numbers and because it says up here, coin laundry business only for sale, all those things make me think that the owner of this business probably owns the property also. And they created an incredibly high rent because it dramatically increases the value of their property. That would be my guess. I don't know that for a fact, but that'd be my guess. And it could be a question if you, I mean, it'd be good to know who your landlord is. So you'd probably find that out at some point along the way, but that'd be my guess. But anyways, this rent amount is incredibly high. It's going to be very difficult to make money with this business with a rent of $12,250 when you're only bringing in $27,000. I mean, at this point, I mean, you almost need to be making close to $50,000 a month of gross income to make this rent worth it. So that's a huge red flag right there. And honestly, for me, this is a deal breaker. I would not. And in fact, I told both of my consulting clients who brought me this deal, you just walk away from this one. I mean, if you want to ask them questions and stuff just for experience, that's fine. But this deal is one to walk away from. It's just not viable with this rent. Okay. So, but continuing on, because this is not all the information we have. So let's just keep going. We've got telephone, repair, maintenance. That actually looks like a pretty reasonable number. Maybe, I don't know how many machines they have. So, I mean, that seems like pretty reasonable, but it might tell me that there's some older machines. If they're paying $1,700 a month for repairs and maintenance, they may have some older machines, which means you're going to need to replace machines, which means the value of that laundromat's even lower, right? Okay. So insurance, water. Okay. Payroll is the other huge red flag here. $840 a month for payroll on a business making $27,000 a month is just not feasible. Now, again, I'm going to make an assumption because I've seen this over and over. My assumption is that the owner is working at the laundromat, maybe even full-time, but they're working significant hours at the laundromat and they're not counting that as payroll hours. So when we get to the end of all this and they say their total expenses are $22,530 and the net income is $6,270. Well, that $6,270 a month sounds really good for this purchase price over here of $300,000. That's actually not too bad. However, they're not accounting for the bulk of the payroll, which is going to be, you know, either your biggest expense or maybe your second biggest expense with this huge rent over here. And so this this payroll over here is a huge deal, because even if the owners are working there, you still have to count that as payroll hours. And even if you're planning on buying this business in order to go in there and work full time, the same as the owner does, you still count that payroll time as an expense over here. So that needs to be accounted for. So, pretty conservatively, you're probably adding another $3,000 to $4,000. And what you would do to figure this out is go find out, how much you would pay somebody per hour to work there. Usually it's around minimum wage plus or minus a few dollars. And just, maybe go look at, I was just reading on Facebook, actually, Ross Dodd's business partner with Diligence Capital Investments. He uses Panda Express's pay scale and tries to kind of keep pace with them to a degree. You can do something like that, McDonald's, something like that. Find out what they're paying, and that's who you're competing with, basically. So you can use those numbers if you want to. Find out how many hours you want them to work and calculate this real payroll number over here. Guarantee you it's going to be $3,000 or $4,000 more than this a month. Let's just say it's $3,000 more a month. Well, all of a sudden that takes that $6,270 of net income, your gross income minus your expenses, and they're counting this $1,800 in this number too. Well, if we take out that another $3,000, well, now we're at $3,270, which is significantly less. And we have a question mark about this $1,800 over here. And if that $1,800 goes away, we're in a world of hurt, right? $3,200 minus $1,800, we're at $1,400 a month of net income. If this goes away and we add $3,000 here, well, now all of a sudden this business is not looking very good. Plus we have this incredibly high rent over here. So all of that to say, while this looks great, the $6,270 and the $299 a month, these are the things that I'm looking at to decide whether this is a deal worth pursuing and asking more questions. For me, I saw this and pretty much immediately was like, this is a bad deal. Just walk away from it. It's not worth anything, to both of my clients. However, I wanted to walk you through why this is such a bad deal, what exactly I'm looking for in a deal like this. So if I saw that this was $27,000 a month, there was 15 years left on this lease, the rent was a little more, reasonable, somewhere at like $6,000 a month. And payroll was, $3,000 or $4,000 a month over here. And I had similar numbers. I would be feeling pretty good about this place potentially. Of course, there'd be more questions to ask. And I'd still assume that the landlord was the one selling the business, which is fine. It's not a big deal. But those are the things I'd be looking for. Those are the things you should be looking for. Obviously, at Laundromat Resource, we do consulting over here. In fact, we're adding more consultants because so many people, there's so much demand. It's really easy. You can see here, it's really easy to go really wrong really fast when looking at a laundromat deal if you don't know what to look for. So obviously you can utilize our services, laundromatresource.com/coaching. And we're adding more consultants who are knowledgeable about this business, who have good hearts. That's my number one thing. Number one and number two things. You got to know what you're talking about, and you got to have a good heart to help people. But obviously there's plenty other people and ways to get help. Go check out the Laundromat Resource forums, go on some of the Facebook groups and ask other owners to help you out. But just don't go it alone, because it's so easy to make this mistake. And one call, from these two consulting clients saved both of them literally tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, literally. So just wanted to show you that. Hopefully that's helpful to you. Let me know if you have any questions down in the description. And man, keep at it. Action paves the way. You don't know any of this stuff until you start asking. So get in there, go analyze some deals, and let's get it done. Let's get you to your goals or to your freedom or whatever it is you're trying to get at. All right. See you at the next video. Peace.